Hello, I'm Dr. Missick. Welcome to this episode of Voice of the Word. In this episode, I want to remember our martyrs. And 2 years ago, in 2023, something very, interesting, very troubling happened. The first thing is that the Biden administration released billions of dollars in funds to the Iranian theocracy. And it's like, why would they do that? One of the things that told me that is that Barack Hussein Obama, is really in control. Joe Biden, he had advanced dementia. He could hardly even walk straight or stand up, or even, not only could he not string sentences together, he couldn't even enunciate words half the time. I watched that debate with Trump just because I was amazed that they would even attempt a debate with his advanced state of decline, and it went as well as I expected it to. So it's like, why is the Biden administration so dead set on giving money to Iran? But notice what happened. After that funding was released, you had a bombing in an Assyrian city of Baghdad in northern Iraq, where about 200 people were killed in probably an Iranian-backed attack on the Assyrian Christian population of northern Iraq. It's like a wedding hall, and there's festivities going on. There's an explosion. About 200 people were killed. So I think that what we're seeing is the money being released and then it being used to finance terror. And then what happened? Then we had Nagorno-Karabakh, an Armenian enclave in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is Turkish, and Nagorno-Karabakh is mostly Armenian with an Assyrian population as well. And the Azeri Turks went in there and wiped out all the Assyrians and all the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, did ethnic cleansing of the entire population. So first the money is released to Iran. Then we have the attack in Nagorno-Karabakh. We have the attack in the Assyrian Christian wedding ceremony in Iraq. And then we have October 7th. I am sure that all three of these events were backed by Iran. October 7th, of course, was the attack on Israel, and we're still living 2 years later the carnage and war that was initiated by this attack by Hamas on Israel. During the Jewish is the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, so it's a little anniversary thing, and they attacked during a holiday called Simchat Torah. But Israel is not a very religious. It's got a religious population, but there was some kind of a rave going on of young people, and many people are brutally murdered by Hamas, and now that precipitated this terrible war. But I think that we need to remember what happened to the Assyrians in Nagorno-Karabakh. We need to remember this the wedding hall massacre, and I want to put the pictures up as we reflect on this. And what I want to talk about briefly in today's program is the menace of radical Islam. I was talking to a friend from Syria recently, and I've been to Lebanon many times. I love Lebanon. But Lebanon has not yet recovered from its civil war, and it can't as long as Iran controls Hezbollah in Lebanon, and as long as Hezbollah controls the southern region of Lebanon. There's no chance for peace, stability, prosperity in Lebanon, and we need a renewed Lebanon to really be beneficial for the community. So we need to pray about this situation. So something else is going on. This isn't directly related to Aramaic and the Assyrian people, but it's what's going on in Nigeria right now. And I want to talk about how we respond to the threat of radical Islam in this program.
Jesus was an Aramaic-speaking Jew of the Middle East, and the Assyrians are Aramaic-speaking Christians in the Middle East who have endured persecution for over 1,000 years. Join Voice of the Word Aramaic Bible teacher, artist, and author Stephen Missick as he examines the Bible through the ancient languages, peoples, lands, cultures, and times in which it was first revealed. Research the Scriptures, rescue persecuted Christians, and restore the Church to its Semitic roots. And now, Voice of the Word.
There's a Coptic American named Raymond Ibrahim, and he's written a lot of good books. And one of the books he's written is called Crucified Again. And there's all kinds of attacks against Christians, mostly by Muslims, and persecution of Christians by Muslims around the world, and atrocities being committed, and it's not really reported in the news media. So Raymond Ibrahim talks about this because the left-wing Marxist anti-Christian journalism industry that we have in the United States of America, they want to portray the Muslim world. The Muslims are an aggrieved people. They're a victimized people. That's the narrative that they want us to spin. And narratives, they're about narratives. So Muslims are a victimized people. The reason why they have problems in their societies and cultures is our fault. We did it to them somehow, right? We've exploited them. That's the narrative they're trying to sell. So what happens if the Muslims are, if the Muslims who are supposedly an aggrieved people are torturing, killing, discriminating, persecuting, that calls the whole entire narrative into question. So they don't report on those stories. And I think at this time, I think American people are finally waking up to understand that CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC News, it's all a left-wing propaganda machine. And thinking people and Christians, we're going to have to get our information elsewhere. And as I mentioned, there is an Assyrian international news agency that reports on. There's also Coptic Solidarity. And what these organizations do is they're going to report on stories that are suppressed by the anti-Christian news establishment, the so-called legacy media. So what's going on right now is there's killings of Christians in Nigeria. Why is this? Well, Nigeria is roughly about half Christian, half Muslim. And whenever you have a sizable Christian, you have any country that has a sizable Muslim minority, or if it's half and half, you're going to have conflict, because Islam is not a religion. It's a political system. It's an imperialistic political system bent on global control. It's a Sharia law is like a constitution. It's a system of governance, and they believe it's divinely mandated that must be implemented over the entire planet. And it's problematic, to say the least. So what do we do about that? Well, we have, like, just I was talking about Lebanon. What happened in Lebanon? Lebanon had a Christian majority. Once the population demographic shifted to half and half, then you have civil war. Of course, the Palestinians, the PLO, that precipitated all that. And right now, I've been to Lebanon. It's a beautiful country, still suffering. And by the way, in the previous program, I was talking about Shadi Kulul, and he is an Aramaic Christian in Galilee. He's trying to promote the use of Aramaic, and he is of Maronite descent. So Maronites use Aramaic, at least for liturgical purposes. About 100 years ago, they were still speaking Aramaic, but unfortunately the language died out. But there's a strong Aramaic influence in Levantine Arabic, actually. So we'll look at the tragedy of Lebanon. And another thing, I mentioned this in a previous program, but I was a little kid when the Lebanese Civil War was going on. I wasn't really able to be engaged with it, wasn't mature enough. But looking back on how the journalists covered that, the left-wing journalists, is they demonized the media here in the United States and in England, demonized the Christians of Lebanon, and they presented the Hezbollah and the Islamic militants and terrorist organizations as the good guys, which isn't surprising. These people haven't changed. It's evil. It's evil. Don't subject yourselves to lies and deception. We need to expose these evildoers in the news media. Just disengage from it, find alternate sources of media. So what do we do about this rise of Islam? First, we need to know what's going on. Secondly, and David Wood has talked about this, and he said recently that, which is true, Islam cannot withstand scrutiny. And what needs to happen is every Christian needs to know just some basic facts about Islam, like the Islamic dilemma, where Muhammad appeals the authority of the Christian scriptures, and yet the Quran contradicts the Quran says that Jesus is not the Son of God, that God is not our Father, that Jesus did not die on the cross or rise again from the dead. What commonality is there? It's like they believe in the virgin birth, supposedly, but they don't believe that Jesus is Lord or Christ, the Son of God, the way we understand it. And then you look at Muhammad's life as a warlord, clearly, and some of the things he did with the marriage of Aisha, the incident of satanic verses, the men of Al-Zut. So Christians need to be educated on that, because there's a lot of things that, it's just the whole idea that Jesus wasn't crucified. We're looking at facts of history that are denied by Islam. So knowing about Islam, if people just understand basic facts, Islam can be defeated like that, and it has to be. We cannot allow this system of Sharia law to be implemented. We can't allow, like right now, England is in the process of becoming a Muslim country. If the people don't rise up now, they only have a few months to do it, really. England's done. And it's what's happening. So what's going on is, like, we're going to find ourselves in a conflict with Islam. And we also have to rethink. I want to talk about how we have to rethink what the church is. And what I want to talk about is how church history has been taught. And it is important. And one of the things that the Muslims try to do is they prey on people, their ignorance of history. And we ourselves in the West have not been teaching Christian history properly. And until recently, if you get a book on the history of Christianity, you're getting a book on the history of Western, Christendom. Maybe a little bit of information about the Byzantine Empire thrown here and there. But the focus is on the Christian West. But that's not ever been part of the complete Christian story. So I have this book here. This is Readings in World Christian History. This is volume 1, Earliest Christianity of 1543. That's about the time of the fall of Constantinople. If you look at this illustration, this is Constantine and Helena and the discovery of the true cross. And here we have an Aramaic text. So we're starting to see church historians expand their understanding of church history and include the stories of the Armenians, the Assyrians, the Copts. And so we see in this book here, we have medieval Christianity in Asia. And this is the apology of Patriarch Timothy of Baghdad before the Caliph Mahdi. And he's called Mar Timotheus the Great. He's a patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East, and probably one of their greatest patriarchs. And what he did is he had a let's read how they put it here. When the Abbasid Caliphate established its new Islamic capital at Baghdad in the year 750, the patriarch of the Persian or East Syrian Church, that is the Church of the East, moved to Baghdad as well. In 780, the reforming, missionary-minded Bishop Timothy became patriarch. In 781, he participated in a 2-day interreligious dialogue with the Abbasid Caliph Mahdi and wrote an account of the interchange that circulated as an apology. In matters of Christology, some of the deophysic or the two-natured emphasis of the East Syrian Christianity are evident in the fascinating conversation between a Muslim caliph, and a Christian bishop. And this is very dangerous. Look at what goes on in Pakistan today. Like I said, the news media doesn't report this, but you have many people in Pakistan who are killed because they're accused of blaspheming the Prophet Muhammad. And what does that mean? Like talking about the satanic verses, which is part of the hadith. It's part of the official biographies of the Prophet Muhammad, that he advocated for the worship of the daughters of Allah. And then he decided that Satan tricked him to giving that surah. Salman Rushdie just retold a story from the life of Muhammad, and there's a fatwa put out against him, and which means that the Ayatollah said that it's the duty of every Muslim to kill Salman Rushdie. And he was attacked, and just like Marmari Emanuel, he was given a speech, and someone ran up and stabbed him repeatedly in the face and put out one of his eyes. So they did that to Marmari Emanuel, and they also did that to Salman Rushdie. who wrote this book about this incident in the life of Muhammad called The Satanic Verses. So there's this Asia Bibi, this woman in Pakistan, and she's working on a field. She came to get some water, and she was mocked. She's mocked by some Muslim neighbors for being a dirty Christian, and she said some innocuous comeback like, Christ has made me clean, or something to that effect. And they accused her of blasphemy, and they were going to. She was scheduled to be executed, and she was able to flee the country at the last minute. So that's Sharia blasphemy law. So you got to tread very lightly. So it's really amazing, this dialogue, interfaith dialogue. And then we also have the Jesus Sutras here from the Siam or the Nestorian Monument, and then they found in a cave. First, you have the Chinese monument, the inscription from China, but then you also have the Jesus Sutras. They found a cave with Assyrian Christian literature in Chinese. So we need to be aware of our history, what's happened, our recent history, what's going on right now. And I was reading about Mar Awa talking about the decline of Christianity in the Middle East, and we need to try to sustain the communities that are still there, and help them, aid them, build up these communities like the community in Armenia as well, to grow those communities. And because it's going to be hard for the Assyrian people to survive in the future if they're just disappear in their ancestral homeland. But the other thing we have to do, this isn't just a problem for the Assyrians. The problem of radical Islam is becoming a global issue, and it has to be confronted. And with the light of truth shining on it, this radical Islam cannot survive. But the problem is we have a lot of disinformation, and what's going on is, especially on social media right now, Qatar and Saudi Arabia are paying people to have. You get these kids, they want to be an influencer, right? They want to go online and succeed, go viral, and then they get approached by the Qataris or the Saudi Arabians. They'll give them some money if they start talking, read the Quran and promote it. And I don't believe these kids. I read the Quran, it's the best book ever. It's like, did you really read the Quran? Really? It's one of the most difficult things I've ever tried to read, because he rambles on incoherently, it's disjointed, disorganized. It's not a great piece of literature. Muslims claim that Muhammad couldn't read or write, and if you read the Quran, it's definitely a product of an unlearned mind. So the thing is, there's questions if Muhammad even existed, and I have my doubts. It's very possible the life of Muhammad was concocted later, but I just wonder, it's like, why did they write the Quran with so many deficiencies and mistakes in it? It's like, couldn't they have done better than that? But it could have been that's all they had to work with. Maybe, maybe they were stuck with the Quran. But it seems like all the errors, like it says the Trinity's Allah, Mary, and Jesus and stuff, or confusing Saul for Gideon, or it's rife with errors, and it seems like an internal contradictions. And the calls for religious violence and all the threats of hellfire and damnation. It seems like somebody went through there and toned it down a little bit, made it more, engaging, palatable. I really doubt these kids actually. Oh, I read the Quran. It's. But look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. We cannot be ignorant of their devices. This is what's happening, and we need to engage. And I also want to remember, we got to be bold and ferocious. Remember our brother Charlie Kirk, who died. Mankind's future. This is not just about. I believe in Christianity, the truth of Christianity, but what is going to happen to mankind if radical Islam prevails? It's going to bring destruction, death, and devastation, and we have to counteract that right now. But here you had our brother Ashur Sarnia, and he was preaching the gospel, and these Muslims went into his abode, his house, and slit his throat while he was streaming on TikTok or one of these other social media platforms. But we're just going to have to be bold and courageous and speak the word of truth and be inspired by the apostles. And I want to mention, if you want to support my work, I have my books online. This is the Further Acts of the Apostles according to Abdias of Babylon, and I wrote and illustrated this book, and it's about the continuing further acts of the apostles, and I did the different edition of it. I think this is the Lives of the 12 Apostles, kind of like a follow-up version. I think this is actually an improvement of the original book. I'm doing a series on Abdias of Babylon, Lives of the 12 Apostles. I think the stories of the 12 Apostles are very important. I have other books out as well, which are on Amazon. So I'll try to do a different program because I want to talk about the Agaputros chateau that was burned down. A friend of mine went to it before it was destroyed. This is a great loss for the Assyrian community. It's a very historically significant edifice, and we've lost an important part of our history, and I need to talk to my friend so she can give me details about Agaputros' castle and his vision for keeping the Assyrian Christian heritage alive and preserving it for posterity. So we'll talk about that later on this week. So thank you, and God bless you.
Research, rescue, and restore. Help Voice of the Word and Aramaic Christian Ministries mission research the ancient languages, peoples, lands, cultures, and times of the Bible. Rescue persecuted Assyrian Christians in the Middle East and restore Christianity to its original Semitic roots. For Stephen Missick's books, online giving, and other resources from Aramaic Christian Ministries, visit www.stephenmissick.com. Join us next time on Voice of the Word as we research the Scriptures, rescue persecuted Christians, and restore the Church to its Semitic roots.